Hey folks, I'm Cuz Strickland, and welcome to this episode of Tennessee Dirt, presented by Mossy Oak Properties, Tennessee Land and Farm, a podcast dedicated to helping you find your favorite place. Each episode we'll talk about all things related to land ownership and conservation throughout the great state of Tennessee. And don't worry, there'll be plenty of hunting and fishing stories too. Our goal here is to help each of you live your best life in the Tennessee dirt.
Hello, I'm Chris Dowdy of Mossy Oak Properties, Tennessee Land and Farm. Welcome to the Tennessee Dirt Podcast. Today's guest is a good friend of mine, Randy Couture. I also got Davis Fleming here from Mossy Oak Properties. How you doing, Davis?
Man, I'm great. Summertime, sun shining. I love it.
Yep, me too. How are you, Randy?
I'm doing good.
What are you doing here in Nashville, Randy?
We got Professional Fighters League semifinal fights for our world tournament going on here in Nashville tonight, actually. So been in town a couple days, had the weigh-ins and the weigh-in show yesterday, and the fights are tonight.
Right.
It's semifinals, so single elimination tournament. We had 64 fighters in the tournament, 8 different weight classes. Had a crazy season so far. The first round has been a finish rate of almost 70% out of 32 fights. 22 of them were finishes, so it's been wild. It's been a wild season.
And that's a pretty unique format for MMA, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I like it. I think, these guys are fighting 3 times in 5 months, which is a pretty quick turnaround as MMA goes. But they like the regularity of it. They know when the next fight is. They're not waiting for the phone to ring and some promoter to call them. They know exactly who and when they're fighting next. And turning around every 8 weeks is a challenge as a fighter to recover and deal with any injuries and stuff like that. It's just a lot of layers to the onion, which is interesting.
Right. That's unique. And then that's on ESPN Plus, correct?
ESPN and ESPN Plus, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously this will air after tonight's fight, but in the future they can pick that up.
Yeah, you can tune in. We're in our 8th season. We used to do the true sports format, a regular season, a playoff, and a championship every year, which is also different for MMA. Not the true prize fighting model that a lot of the other promotions use. This season we changed it, kind of turned the screws a little bit. Single elimination. There's no redemption there. You either win and advance or lose and go home and wait till next year. So a lot on the line.
Bring your best.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows you for your fighting aspects and things you've done in the MMA. Tell us a little bit about the outdoors and your background in that.
Yeah, I started hunting at 6. My dad, who I never saw much, he wasn't a big part of my life, to be honest. And he used to come take me out of school for a week and take me hunting from 6 on. We never shot a thing, ever. But I was in the woods, and I was happy in the woods. And that was one of the few times I got to bond with him and be around him. So to this day, I love to be out. If I have free time, I'm going to be outside. I'm going to be hunting. It's my favorite place to be. So,
and that's kind of a motto we live by: is just get outside. I mean, God created this wonderful ground for us to seek, and it's something that Mossy Oak we live by too.
Yeah, I think in the society we live in, getting out, getting back to nature, cutting loose from a bunch of the societal norms and the restrictions and the fear and everything that they want to control us with. Yeah. And getting to nature, getting back how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. The earth vibrates at 7.83. That's why the beach is so relaxing, because that wave, every wave that crashes on that beach is vibrating at that frequency. And there is no better place to be for your mental health, for your physical health. Get dirty. Get your bare feet out there. Get dirty. Get out in the woods. And that's the way we're made.
Yep. You grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I mean that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially from Tennessee, if you've never been there, Oregon, Washington, when you go outdoors, you're as out in the outdoors as you can get. I mean, it is out there, straight up and down.
Yeah, I grew up in Seattle, north of Seattle, a small town called Linwood, Washington. Lived in Oregon for about 13 years. That's when I was coaching at Oregon State, and then started fighting back in the 90s. Started fighting in 97. Graduated from college in 92 at Oklahoma State, and then got hired as the assistant wrestling coach at Oregon State. The first time I'd been back in the Pacific Northwest since I left at 19 to join the Army.
Yeah.
So it was a great job. I loved coaching. I loved being back in the Pacific. Picked up a bow and started hunting again.
Yeah.
All that when I moved back to Oregon. And my youngest is graduating from Oregon State this coming Saturday.
That's awesome.
Leaving here tomorrow and headed to his graduation ceremonies in Corvallis in Oregon.
Corvallis.
That's awesome. Yeah, that we hunted in Kentucky. It's been years ago now. You get a turkey with Harold Knight.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
the best guy as my guide to call turkeys.
Babe Ruth.
Oh my gosh, that was fun. And of course, Mindy shot the first turkey. She'd never been hunting.
Yeah,
that was her first kill.
She was the first person in camp to
and
kill a
she was
turkey.
so excited about that.
Isn't that wild that happens?
I think there was people that hadn't left to go hunting when Mindy came back with her turkey. If I remember right, it was so awesome.
You know Mindy, and a lack of filters. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And this big turkey comes in and is literally molesting the decoy, and she shoots it. She's like, he had it coming. He was raping my decoy.
That's all. That was her first experience?
That was her first experience. Yeah, KD's with the Turkey Foundation, and we auctioned off a hunt.
Yeah, we auctioned off a hunt actually for the Williamson County chapter of the NWTF back when I was the president. We all, every year we kind of did a special auction package because at the NWTF banquets, they basically give you one day to raise money for them, but we wanted to do something different where we could dedicate it locally. And so every year we had a different package. One year we did a hunt with Michael Waddell. One year we did a fishing trip with Bill Dance. And then we had supposed to be 4 celebrities on this turkey hunt. And actually, we didn't plan it on Harold Knight being there, but we did it at Whitetail Creek Outfitters in Katie's, and that's owned by Butch McElwain, which is actually Harold's younger brother. So we did this turkey hunt up there, and Harold just happened to be around. Normally in the spring, you can't catch Harold. And so we lined Harold up with Randy, and they went and did some turkey stalking. It was pretty awesome.
It was fun. It was a
really
blast.
Cool. That was like the first year that Harold was using a Reaper decoy. And he just took Randy out like the first afternoon just to see how close they could get. And you remember that? And walked up on turkeys.
Yeah. We had a blast. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I learned a lot from him, just being around him and how all the calling and all the stuff that he got into that made him who he is was really interesting. And the elk calls, obviously elk and turkey are two of my favorites because you get to talk to the animals.
Right.
It's unbelievable, honestly. You feel like you're actually communicating and playing that, and it's a lot of fun.
It's like a game back and forth. Between you and him. Yeah,
that's an excellent point. That's a lot of times when I talk to people about this, have never turkey hunted, but maybe they've elk hunted. I say it's our version of elk hunting. I mean, you can elk hunt in East Tennessee if you get drawn for a tag, but you're communicating with the animal, and they're responding to that call and calling back to you. And if you've never had a turkey cobble in your face from 10 yards, I mean, it's a special experience.
If that don't get your blood flowing,
I know.
You need to check up from the neck up because you ain't got no pulse.
That's right. I mean, it's astonishing to me how peaceful a turkey hunt can be, just sitting out there in the spring and everything's coming alive and it's quiet. And then at the same time, how you can go from being absolutely relaxed to almost like your body being in shock because you hear that bird gobble and you instantly got to have a play. You've got to have a plan to get on him. And oh man, I love it. I like elk hunting. I've done it some and I've had success doing it. I don't like hiking up mountains and there's not many places you can hunt them that you don't have to go up.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting, you can kind of pick a spot, and if you play your cards right, in a day or two, you can be successful and whatnot. And calling is not the art that a lot of people make it to be. I mean, it's amazing how little you can do and kill a turkey, and a lot of times that's the best thing about it. It's just not over calling. And sorry, I can go on a rant about turkey hunting, but I love it.
It's just like you got to read the bird.
Yeah,
you got to read him. You got to read the environment around you, what's going on in the woods, and same thing with duck hunting. I mean, that's kind of my passion is duck hunting, and the same type deal. You can overcall, and then there's days that they want to hear you screaming at them. So
I got to do a duck and goose hunt in Oklahoma a couple years back with Dan Henderson, one of my best friends, another fighter, and Chad, the guy from Foul Life,
Oh, yeah.
took us out.
Oh yeah.
We had Gary from Rascal Flats was hunting with us, and I have never seen that many birds. I mean, we were in a duck tornado. It was
Yeah.
it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Decoys as far as you can see, and there had to be 30,000 birds swirling around above us, and I was just like, "Where am I at right now? Oh my gosh!"
That's crazy because we only hear stories about those days over here now. It's the
know,
flyways
yeah.
changed and whatnot. When I lived in Wenatchee, Washington for a while.
Okay,
And
I used to deer hunt over there when I was a kid.
I did the same thing. And when I worked in the music business years ago, I had an apartment in Nashville and then I had an apartment in Wenatchee.
Huh.
And depending on what my schedule was during hunting season, I would go to Wenatchee, and I had a roommate at both places. But I only had a car in Nashville, and I had a mountain bike in Wenatchee. And I would literally get there. I'd get my bow. I'd strap it up. I'd put a tent, and I'd ride that mountain bike up into the national forest up there above the town. And I would bow hunt. And if I killed anything, I had to call my roommate and get him to send somebody out there with the
Come
truck.
pick you up.
But I loved it. And that place was so beautiful. And I got invited to a Duck Said Limited banquet there. And one night, and I didn't know anybody there. I mean, I wasn't a resident. I literally just went there to hunt, but it was unique because it was one of the few places that you could basically hunt elk and not have to get drawn. Now, you would have to get drawn for a bull, but I didn't care about a bull. I just wanted to bow hunt elk. And we would go over to places like Cle Elum,
Yeah,
and
sure.
and get out there. And there's a lot of timber companies that own land, but I don't know if it's the same now, but at the time, they basically had to treat it like it was public hunting land. Go out there, and it was unreal. And it's like I said, when you're out there, dude, you are out there. I mean,
Yeah, it's a different environment there for sure. As wet as it is, we get all that rain. Why is it so green? Because it rains all the time. You better bring your galoshes because you're going to get wet.
Yeah,
That's how
Wenatchee
it
is unique in that where it sets, it's right on the river there, Columbia River. As the rain comes over the Cascades, it all drops out. And then on the opposite side of the river, it's basically desert because
Yeah.
all the moisture hits the ground. And when I went to that DU banquet, I asked some guys, I was like, where do y'all duck hunt at here? There's no lakes, or Lake Chelan was there, but it's not really a duck lake. And I was like, we really don't get a whole lot of duck hunting here. Like, you see stuff coming down the flyway.
They come down the gorge,
Yeah.
Columbia River Gorge. I've hunted geese in the Columbia River Gorge.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying.
In eastern Washington, there's a decent flyway over there. I hunted there as a kid with my stepdad. He was a better hunter.
Really?
Yeah, we actually killed deer and elk. We were in Okanagan when I was a kid, and he killed a massive 6x7 bull.
Oh, wow.
Ran right at him. He had to shoot it. It was going to run him over.
Well, I figured it out up there. I was driving around one day, and of course, there's apple orchards everywhere, and there's irrigation ditches through those apple orchards. And I come around this curve, and all of a sudden, all these ducks fly up off this irrigation ditch, and I was like, hold on. And I whoop into this place, and I asked the guy, I said, excuse me, I says, like, there a manager here for this property? He said, yeah, he's right over there. So I walked over and introduced myself. I said, you've got ducks on these irrigation ditches. Do you let people hunt them? He said, we've never had anybody ask to hunt them. He said, but you're welcome to come out and hunt them. Well, the water wasn't a foot deep. So I just got a bag of decoys, and they had 20-foot leaders on them because I'm used to hunting in West Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even unstring them. I would just throw them in the ditch. They wasn't going anywhere. And I would sit in the cattail reeds down there in a 5-gallon bucket, and I would limit out every day. And I was the only person out there hunting.
Wow.
It was
No
phenomenal.
pressure. No pressure on them like we got here in West Tennessee. Yeah.
Dude, and it, like, you'd have widgeons come down through there, and it was like shooting at a fighter jet. I mean, it was past you by the time you got the gun up. It was unreal.
Yeah,
I did see a couple of cinnamon teal out there, which we don't see over here, and that was pretty amazing.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah, go down to Texas on the coast down there and kill cinnamon.
Yeah. They were rare, but I would see them. I never shot one, but you would see them come down the flyway there. A place that's got a lot of duck and geese that I never imagined is outside Denver. I was out there one time, and there was geese by the thousands out there, but you think about it, and you get to Denver, if you're coming from the east going west, it's nothing but fields.
Yeah.
And then you get to water, where the river comes down through there, and then there are mountains, and it kind of forces them, I guess,
funnels them, yeah.
stay on that side. But I was surprised by that. I wasn't out there hunting. I was just, out there doing Denver stuff, but it was amazing. Do you like to fish at all?
I do. We grew up on the Puget Sound in the Pacific Northwest. Edmonds, Linwood, we're all right there with the ferries and the bay. And we had a small boat, a 17-foot little tri-hole boat. My stepdad, Don, made crab pots, and we'd go crabbing and bottom fishing out there. The salmon runs, the silvers and the kings would run, and we'd be out fishing. I grew up doing that a lot. And then we had a small boat that we took to the lakes, Fish Lake over by Wenatchee, and do some trout fishing too as a kid. Yeah, he was an interesting guy. He worked at the paper mill up there.
Yeah.
He was a rough guy. We didn't always see eye to eye, but I learned a lot from him. He was a good hunter. He was one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys. So as a junior high and high school boy, I learned a lot just being around that guy. It wasn't always fun, but still learned a lot.
Tough love, yeah.
When I think about my childhood, my dad, he was a hunter. He loved to fish. He'd rather fish than do anything. And he raised coon dogs. He had a Grand Night champion coon dog that was a world champion. And in his later years, all he did, that was his living, was basically, breed that dog. But like I look back on my childhood, and my parents were divorced when I was young. And really the only exposure that I got to the woods was when I would go, stay with my dad. And like I said, we were always fishing or hunting. I did not like to coon hunt because there's nothing fun about going through the woods in the dark with a little light on your head, getting eaten up by briars. But when I think about the things that we did, even when I wasn't around him, I would always want to replicate it, And I think that's one of the things about the influences, when you're a kid and you're impressionable about hunting and the outdoors and nature in general, is whenever you just do things that, with somebody, you turn into really wanting to do those things by yourself. I mean, I can remember spending hours catching crawdads in a creek, and nobody probably had any idea where I was because that's where I was going and that's what I was going to do,
Yeah, different world we live in now with all the technology, these kids, and there's VR hunting games that these kids are playing instead of actually getting out in the woods.
Yeah. Well, you can't eat VR meat. So.
No, you can't do that. Well, you like wild meat?
Well, if they have their way, we'll be eating that fake meat for crying out loud.
They'll be growing it.
What's your favorite wild game meat to eat?
Elk has always been my favorite.
Yeah.
From the time my stepdad shot that giant bull, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. It was huge, and they're not like deer. You spook a deer and you whistle, and he stops to look back and see what that was, and he gives you a shot. You spook an elk, they ain't stopping running until they're in the next county.
Yeah.
They're a different thing completely. And then again, archery hunting's always been my favorite. I started shooting a bow at 12 with that stepfather and the Boy Scouts, and like we said with turkey and elk, you get to communicate with the animals when they're in the rut. August usually when archery season starts, and you're out there with your bugle and your cow calls, and you're getting a response, and it's like, holy crap, what was that?
Right.
And it just adds a whole nother layer to the engagement. It's so much more up close and personal with a bow than a rifle.
Yeah.
I'm shooting, 200 to 500 yards. I mean, I've just loved that nuances of bow hunting. You got to get close and you got to make a good shot. Right. And so elk has always been one of my favorite, and it's my favorite to eat. I don't really want to shoot anything I can't eat.
Right. Yeah.
They tried to get me to go cat hunting in Colorado when I had the Colorado property, and I'm like, I don't really want to hunt a predator, I can't eat. He said, well, we eat them. It's like, you what? You guys are eating cougars? Really?
Is that how y'all kind of met each other? Was kind of through that Colorado property, or how did y'all meet?
No. I know we've been friends probably about 15 years, but Chris Carter had done a celebrity benefit for his foundation in downtown Nashville.
Waiting on Wishes.
Yeah. And Randy was one of the waiters there. And at the time, I was with Orca Coolers, and we had bought a table there. And we just struck up a conversation there that night, and just a quick conversation and exchanged information. And at the time, I was over the pro staff of Orca, and we were rebuilding it. And I thought Randy would be a great person to have on the pro staff because he loved the outdoors and whatnot, but also, he had gyms and he was a trainer, and you need cold beverages and things like that. And I didn't want to pigeonhole that company and into just having people that strictly hunted and fished. I wanted it to people to know you could use those coolers in everyday life. And at the time I worked for CSX for the railroad, and I'd bring coolers up there and put them on work trucks and whatnot and fill them up. But nobody saw us common guys out there getting an ice cold drink out there. So you need somebody that had a little exposure, and it worked out. So, we got some coolers in Randy's hands but really it's kind of weird for me. Like I was telling him on the drive down here today, I had worked in the music business and I had done T-shirts, and at the same time he had a partnership with the brand Affliction and had his line of Extreme Couture shirts, and I had a couple of them, and I just kind of marveled at the whole process, what he probably had to do that and whatnot. And I kind of felt like I wasn't really familiar with MMA. I really wasn't. I hate to say that, but it wasn't until after I met Randy that I really started watching it. It was just more about he was a really good guy, and we had a lot in common, and he had kind of done some unique things, in a way that I'd not ever done it. And so for me, there was a lot more benefit for me knowing him than there was him knowing me. But,
We got a few of those coolers for the foundation and auction those off at some of my charity events. I run a 501c3 called the Extreme Couture GI Foundation, and we provide awareness, first of all, but some financial support for some of our wounded combat vets. Since 9/11, a lot of men and women have been in the combat zone, done some of the things I took an oath and trained to do and never had to do, which was put their ass in harm's way to try and protect other people and our way of life. And I got to go to Iraq in 2006, spent 12 days on the ground in Iraq in a combat zone. It was an eye-opening experience for me. Me and Rich Franklin went over there on a morale visit. And back then we were still a fringe sport. Nobody looked at us as a mainstream sport. We're like, oh, you're one of those cage fighters. Like somehow I'm a criminal. I'm going to beat him up. I just want to throw him down and bite him or something. But it was a little bit different. The climate for MMA was just changing with the first season of The Ultimate Fighter in 2005. And I had to go through my old unit, the 101st. I was stationed right up the road here at Fort Campbell in my last duty station. And MWR and the USO wouldn't touch us. They didn't look at us as a legitimate sport. So I went through the 101st, and they brought us over. So we only got to go to Army bases because that's who paid to have us come over. And it was fun. It was great. They took a shooting, got to fly around in a Black Hawk from fob to fob, and really be on the ground with the guys. A couple of the fobs had mats. We rolled the mats out and grappled with all the guys on those bases.
They love that.
Cool.
It was a very interesting trip. Yeah. I have never, and I live in Las Vegas, 129 degrees. I mean, you'd walk out the door and it felt like you were walking into a microwave. I've never, and you got to wear all that gear and everything else on top of that. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. And the training for that. I mean, just to get your body used to that temperature. Holy cow.
I mean, you carried a bottle of water with you everywhere you went because you were literally losing it as fast as you could put it in. 2007, I got to go to Walter Reed in Bethesda in D.C., and we did a barbecue for the Fisher House. It was me, Don Fry, Ken Shamrock, one of my buddies, Mike Davis, who built my motorcycle, my chopper. He lives in Richmond, and he kind of sponsored that whole thing. It was the first time going to the wards and walking through the hospital and meeting a bunch of men and women fresh off the battlefield, learning to walk again, getting fitted for prosthetics, going through all the surgeries they had to go through, meeting their caretakers. That's where the barbecue was at the Fisher House. That's for caretakers, your mom, your dad, your wife. While you're in the hospital, they stay in this house. And that's the Ronald McDonald House is probably the closest thing to that. But for the military, it's the Fisher House. So that's where we did the barbecue. I met a bunch of caregivers, bunch of moms, bunch of wives, bunch of dads whose loved one was in that hospital. And walking to the hospital was another eye-opening experience. Almost to a man or woman, they're like, "Oh man, I can't wait to get fixed up so I can get my buddies are still back over there." I'm like, "Bro, slow your roll. You've done enough already. Chill."
They're trained that way, though.
That's the camaraderie that when you put that green on, man, that's all you see, and that's just how it is. So that was and then hearing the woes. My mom's car is stuck in the parking garage with a boot on it because she's been here 3 months. We can't afford to pay to get that boot taken off so she can drive back, and we're about to lose the house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You have got to be kidding me. It was infuriating. So many of them falling through the cracks and not being taken care of. And, we talked about the VA a little while ago. It's not an easy place to navigate. And here's these guys that have made these ultimate sacrifices. Some of them don't come back. That survivor's guilt is a real thing. And so that, again, got my attention. And we filed for 501c3 status that year in 2007 and started doing these small events. Started with a motorcycle poker run. We just had our 17th year doing that motorcycle poker run in Las Vegas, raising money. We raised $47,000 that day with a bunch of bikers out, the camaraderie and just having a great time being out, talking about what these guys and men and women go through and where that money's going to go. We're a 100% give back organization. They already work for me. They already work at the gym, or they're friends and want to be involved in part of that mission. So we don't have any overhead. We don't have any expenses, unlike so many of these other foundations that got executives making six figures off of a supposed charity. Come on, that ain't how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
So we're proud of what we do. We've expanded our mission a little. We're not just handing checks to people. We've created a portal on the website for any vet that's struggling with his bills. Show me that bill, and I will pay that bill off and get it out of your life, take that stress away from you.
That's awesome.
Providing some counseling services now, buying 10-block sessions with some of our counselors that are helping with some of those wounds that aren't so easy to see, that are on the inside. Yeah. And we lose 22 a day to PTSD and suicide, and that's a number we've got to work on. Right. It'll never be zero. That's not realistic, but 22, and I think that's a light number. That's ridiculous.
And it's been there for
a while. We've lost way more soldiers here on the home front than we ever lost in the combat zone, which is a travesty. That is ridiculous. Yep. So MVP is the other charity that I'm involved with. We run the Nevada chapter for MVP out of the gym. We're in 9 cities now across the country. We open our gyms up for free. Any vet or any retired player from any sport, come in, get a workout in, get sweating again. And then we sit on those mats in what we call the huddle and talk about what's going on in our lives, positive or negative, and the stuff that comes out in the huddle. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. Peer-on-peer counseling, right? Yeah. Most of us don't want some guy from Stanford with a bow tie telling us how broken we are. It kissed my butt.
Right.
You couldn't do half the shit we've done.
Right.
I'm not broke.
Right.
I'm literally 1% of the population that's able to do the things that we've seen and done. And that's the same as an athlete, not just a vet. Doesn't matter which uniform you're wearing. That transition when you walk away from that endeavor is a huge piece of your identity. Who am I now? I sat next to Tony Gonzalez at one of our huddles. He's like, yeah, man, 2 years ago, I was the king of the world. I was the best football player in the sport. Who am I now?
Yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't strike you and show you exactly what that transition's like and how these guys end up in trouble, adrenaline seeking, hiding out. Some of them don't leave their houses because they don't know who they are anymore. They don't have a purpose. And so MVP is all about helping them find that purpose, getting them reconnected to like-minded individuals that speak the same language, peer-on-peer counseling. That guy in the circle across there has been in that spot already, and he made it through, and he's going to share how he got through that to that other guy who's struggling right now and trying to figure out how to get through that. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
That's what I love about your foundation, too, is it's effective. In most cases, it's pretty immediate compared to what other foundations are like with the help you offer, people. It's done differently in all the right ways. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, well, Scott and Val, they've been with me since we started this whole thing in the gym in 2007. Like I said, they already work for me, and they see the mission and what we're trying to accomplish. And I already pay them. They already work for me. So, and they've grown to really love and just do a lot of amazing work.
Everybody needs a valve.
Yeah, oh my gosh. They if you'd have told me 20 years ago I needed an assistant, I would have laughed at you. But man, I don't know what I'd have done without her now.
Yeah.
She helps me find my butt and keep it straight. And Scott's amazing too. I don't think he'd say, you know what, if he had a mouthful of it, but
sure.
Code and all the logos and all the all this stuff that we do. He's the one that designs and does all that.
That's great.
Erica's kind of that way for you, Chris.
Yeah, she is. She's my right hand in every sense of the word. I wouldn't know where to be if it wasn't for her. She's awesome. Yeah. She's one of the most creative people I've ever been around too. Yeah. So it's pretty neat for me. She's my Val, I guess, but she's just a special person. I feel really fortunate, to have her around.
No, gratitude will take you a long way.
Yeah.
Those hats she created for this podcast are pretty sweet too.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
Tennessee Dirt.
She's so creative and can do anything. It's kind of weird because sometimes I don't ever think maybe she can't do this. It's like this is what I need, and it appears. A couple of days later, but she can do anything. She's awesome. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that when you get to a point in life where you kind of realize how blessed you are with certain people in your life and things you have going on and whatnot. It's I don't know. It's not like I don't feel like a success is a place that you ever arrive at if you're a driven person. I think it's something you're always trying to attain, but it does kind of change your perspective on that whenever you're spending your life with somebody and you're doing cool things.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
that's definitely what she is to me. Tell me about your family.
Well, my mom and my little sister still live up in Seattle, where I grew up in Linwood, Mill Creek area. Mm-hmm. My little sister's a English professor at a Christian university up there.
Yeah.
She lives on Mercer Island up on Lake Washington.
Yeah, I've been there.
Just finished raising her 3 kids, and they're out doing great things. And so her and her husband, who's one of my high school buddies.
Oh, wow.
I was away in the Army, and he went to University of Washington, and so did she. That's where they met and kind of connected. She's 4 years younger than me. He's 2 years younger than me, and we hung out in high school. He was the drummer in the band, All the keggers, all the parties were at his mom and at his house. And I call home saying, "Oh, I'm coming home for Christmas from basic training." Had a couple-week break in the middle of basic training, which was unique, but just the way it worked out. And so I got to come home for Christmas. And I call home to tell Mom, they're giving me a break. I'm coming home for Christmas. She's like, "Oh, yeah, that'll be great. Tracy's dating Vince Grant." And I'm like, "Oh, no, she ain't. I'll be home at Christmas. I'll be fixing that." They've been married forever. They got 3 great children. But, I knew that side of Vince in the high school days, and he's not that man anymore. But it's been fun. My sister Yolanda lives over in Wyoming. Yeah. Her daughter went to Montana State, got a degree in chemistry, was working for Gunworks up there. And she's a unique human. Just sailed around the world in a sailboat. This summer, she's hiking the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada. I mean, that's the kind of wild child she is. She's an amazing human. But that's my sister's daughter, Yolanda.
Yeah.
And Jackie is the one that's hiking the Pacific Crest Trail this summer. But Yolanda moved over out of the state of Washington, I think, for the first time in her life. She was in the Army as well back in the day for a little while. She was a pole monkey. She used to hang wire.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But she moved over there to be closer to her kids. Her son and daughter both live over in the Montana area. She's got grandkids with her son, with Ben. And so she wanted to be close to her grandkids and closer to her children. So she moved out of the state. So I don't get to see her as much as I used to. Yeah. Actually, I'm so busy, I don't get up to Seattle all that often. I'm excited to be up in Oregon this weekend. My youngest is graduating at Oregon State. My daughter, Amy, is living just over the Columbia River in the Washington side. She moved out of Portland. And I was happy they moved out of Portland because Portland's a bit of a hot mess.
Yeah.
So is Seattle, for that matter.
Right.
To be honest, the whole West Coast is a bit of a shit show. And
but you can always go down by the gorge and just start your own country.
Yeah, well, so I'm excited to be back in the Pacific Northwest this weekend, but that's where I grew up, and that's what brought me to the outdoors, skiing, fishing, hunting, all that stuff as a kid were a huge part of my life and how I spent my free time.
As much time as I spent up there, it's an easy place to miss, man, because it's so unique. You can do stuff in the ocean, you can do stuff in the mountains, you can fish in a stream, you can go hunt an elk, you can get chased by Bigfoot. You know, you can
Never know.
pretty much anything
The
you
Sasquatch.
want. Yeah, go pick a fresh apple. I mean, it's a special place, and it's got its own culture. And it's not just Seattle. That's a unique thing about particularly Washington State. Is one side of it is like rainforest, and the other side of it is desert and farmland. And it's one of the few states in the nation you can hunt 3 species of turkey in.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty awesome place.
We know you've had some, battles with people inside the octagon and stuff. Well, you had any close encounters with nature?
Oh, no, I haven't. Had situations here or there. Was out with Danny and Henderson in the Eagle Cap Wilderness, hiked in T-shirts. This is archery season. And then 3 days later, it dumps 3 feet of snow on us, and we're out in the middle of the Eagle Cap Wilderness, treading around in the snow. And Danny gets lost. He didn't have a compass, and we're shooting the gun, and he's answering 6 miles away in this 3 feet of snow. And I was really thankfully run into a bunch of other hunters that had an elk down. And they steered him in the right direction because he was headed in the wrong direction. Needless to say, we got him a GPS after that trip.
Garmin.
But I had cracked open a stump and started a fire because we were literally freezing to death waiting for him. We weren't going to leave him there. And the rest of them had gone back down to our camp, and the snow had crushed our tent. So we literally crawled under that tent and spent the night, slept in the collapsed tent. Because when we got down there, it was dark. There was no way we were fixing that in the dark in 3 feet of snow. And we were out that day. That next day, we were like, pack it up. We're getting out of here. That's probably, I was hunting with Rick and Julie Kreuter up in Alaska.
Yeah.
On a black bear hunt with my bow. And we were a week early. We saw 2 bears the whole week. They said, usually we see 5 bears a day.
Yeah.
But they were just coming out of hibernation. We're, up there, you get on a boat and you roll around the islands and you glass and look for the bears coming out of hibernation. And we had saw a bear, so we all beached in these big aluminum boats. And we pulled them up, so they were safe. Well, while we were up chasing these bears around, the storm rolled in. And tide was coming in as well. So now we get back to our boats, and the back of the boats are full of water.
Oh, wow.
Maybe tainted our gas. We're not sure what's going to happen. So we're bailing these boats out. We built a fire so we'd stay warm, and we're thinking we might be stuck on this dang island. And, of course, they're looking at me because I'm a guest on their show, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. You cannot write stuff like this.
Yeah.
I was excited. It was going to be an adventure, and they were worried I was going to be, pissed off. And I'm like, hell no, you can't. You can't write stuff like that. That was, and we were fine. The gas was fine. We got them bailed out and got them back in the water and made it back. One of them did spring a leak because it was bashing on the rocks every time a wave would come in. But we had to bail it on the way all the way back. But we got back, and that could have been hairy.
Yeah.
It could have been a rough day or a rough weekend, maybe.
Right.
But we were fine, and it was just one of those things. And I'm still talking about that story because all that stuff happened.
If it went
when it
smooth
goes
sailing,
smooth, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Right.
So you got to embrace those things and enjoy the journey. We're so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the journey along the way. And a lot of times that's way more pleasing and enjoyable than the destination turns out to be in the first place. So
I spent a couple of weeks in Alaska in my 30s, and I remember, like, I had it in my head. I was so looking forward to it. When I finally got up there and, got out in the middle of nowhere, like, I remember, like, arriving at the starting point. In my mind, I was like, this is the start of something. I don't know what it is, but adventure awaits, and it's so remote up there. And remote doesn't even describe it. I mean, you can, they have like 2,000 people a year disappear in the state of Alaska.
That's crazy.
It's just
Yeah, that's the
insane.
grizzly man about that.
Yeah. He might as well have been wearing an A1 shirt. You know, he was out there. Jeez, what a goofball.
Felt bad for his girlfriend
Yeah.
trying to beat him off with pots and pans.
Yeah.
It was a horrible.
Yeah, I
horrible
get people
thing.
around here asking for off grid. You know, they want to be out and off grid around where we're at here. And I mean, you can find it. But it ain't nothing like being in Alaska off grid.
It's only so off grid in these areas. I had a buddy that actually flew the Rangers in to that site where the grizzly man got attacked. Yeah, and he said that they had to, when this is probably gruesome for a podcast, but whenever they flew in, they had to buzz the grizzly to get him off of one of the bodies.
Wow.
Whenever they come in there.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know, the outdoors can be dangerous, you know, and that untamed. But my whole point with starting that out was, you know, that story was it's, you feel like you're starting something when you get out. Like it feels like a moment in time that is marked, you know, especially if you're just going out. It could be hunting, it could be camping or whatnot, but it begins a differentiation from everything else that's going on in your life. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a special time. So how do you feel about fighting Davis out here in the parking lot? Winner
I don't
gets
know.
a
How's your
Mossy Oak
health
hat.
insurance?
Well,
You're probably going to need it.
I work, independently here, so
We don't have no health insurance. We don't have workers' comp.
Well, most of the fighters don't either. That's something that needs to change.
Yeah.
But,
How's your world changed since you quit fighting? I mean, I know you do a lot of acting and things like that.
yeah, I stay busy. You know, in 2020, my son Ryan, the oldest, you know, he fought for 12 years, mostly in Bellator.
Yeah.
He retired from fighting to start his family. I got 2 grandsons now with him.
Yeah.
And so I signed the gym over to him, and he's been running the gym the last 4 or 5 years since 2020.
Nice.
I've focused on acting, the charity stuff, obviously commentating for the PFL, which has been fun the last 8 years. That's kept me connected to the sport. Still get in there and train, still get in there and teach every once in a while. Especially Wednesdays, wrestling days on Wednesdays. They hate those days. They make me smile.
hey, you still in shape over there, man. I don't know.
Staying busy and you know, sometimes I feel like a dog chasing his tail, but having fun, doing things I want to do, and going places I want to go most of the time.
Yeah. You had a new movie just come out on Apple TV.
Yeah, F plus kids movie. Was a lot of fun. You know, the kids I got to work with were unbelievable. 12, 13-year-old kids, you know, on 12, 13 hours on a set in Florida shooting this film a couple years back, and not one of them bitched or moaned or there was no, you know, behavioral issues or anything. And they were all professional, like really good. I was amazed. But it made the experience really fun. It was a fun movie. I play a little hyper intense junior high school security guard that the kids take advantage of. It's a lot of fun.
So I've seen it. I gave it 4 stars. Erica was really excited about it coming out. I guess she had seen an ad on Apple TV, and so the day that it released, we watched it that evening, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. It's cool when you get, you know, buddies on screen and whatnot, but it's also cool too whenever you kind of can. You don't have any idea what you're about to watch, you know, and it's your guy on there, but still that goes away 10 minutes into it and you're just into the movie, and it's kind of cool when that happens and it's a good movie, and I loved it.
It's a fun one. It really is a fun one.
Yeah.
Starting a new series called The Giant here in the fall in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're going to shoot that one. It's a murder mystery series, 6 episodes. I'm in 3 of the episodes. My character's kind of an enigma. I'm not really sure what he's doing. He's just kind of observing. It's like, is this guy the antagonist? Is he the murderer? Or is he a spook? What is he? Who is he? And so it tells me the character's probably going to be coming back if they do another season, and I think we'll get to reveal who and what he really is. But right now, I honestly don't know. Yeah. So it's going to be kind of fun. I'm hearing a rumor that Sandra Bullock might be in that series as well, which I've been a fan of hers for a long time, so it'll be fun to work with somebody like that with a big name like that.
Did acting come natural to you? Or?
It's one of those things like drag racing or fighting, fell in my lap. Not something I ever saw myself doing. I think I was in the 6th grade play The Christmas Carol. Played Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
God bless us, everyone.
Bless us.
But
Still
I was
remember the
never
lines?
part of drama or any of that stuff in
Yeah.
school. I was a jock, and they called the UFC in the early 2000s. Hey, we're doing this movie. We want some authentic cage fighters. You know, who do you have? So me, Chuck, and Tito all get the call from the UFC. Hey, you guys want to be in this movie called Cradle to the Grave with Jet Li and DMX? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'll do that. So I spent a week on a set in LA in a parking garage for these underground fight scenes, shooting that one little 5-minute scene in that movie. And it's this whole process. It's like going to Oz and getting to peel back the curtain and see the guy pulling the levers, making the fire and the smoke. It was really intriguing, the whole experience. And I thought, well, this is something I could do. I had one line in the movie. You know, no, let's go, chicken shit. Supposed to fight Jet Li.
We'll beep that out.
But that opened the door, and I ended up taking some acting classes. Ended up eventually getting an agent. Brett Nornsberg at Gersh has been my agent since I started this whole thing. And then obviously a big one for Scorpion King 2 for me, which was The Rock played that character in Scorpion King 1. I got to play the bad guy in Scorpion King 2. Universal property attached to The Mummy, which was a huge property and very successful franchise for Universal. That was the biggest film I'd been involved with at that time. And then Expendables in 2008, that came around. I'd met Sly a couple times. He's a huge fight fan, certainly a boxing aficionado in many, many ways, and loved MMA as well. So I get a call from my agent. Hey, Sylvester Stallone wants you to meet him at his office and talk about this project he's doing. I'm like, well, that's not a meeting you're going to pass up.
No.
So that was fun and a great movie to be a part of. I mean, there's a reason why guys like Sylvester Stallone have been so successful for over 30 years in the industry, because they treat it like a profession. He doesn't care about being famous. Fame is a pain in the butt. To be honest, be careful what you wish for, because your autonomy is gone. You can't go to the mall. The mall would shut down if he showed up at the mall.
Right.
You know,
for
people
me,
don't realize
Walmart,
about that side of being a public person and what that's like. And but if you want to be good at acting in the industry, there's a guy you want to rub elbows with and pay attention to. Amazing writer, super smart, knows his wheelhouse. I mean, it's been fun getting to know Statham and Terry Crews and Dolph Lundgren and 50 Cent was in the last one. Megan Fox, it's just Harrison Ford, Bruce Willis, Schwarzenegger. Obviously, I mean the who's who of action films, and I've been an action film guy since I was a kid. And Rambo, filmed in my home state in Hope, Washington.
Yeah,
that movie spoke to me for some reason, but. It's been an interesting thing I never expected to be involved in, and one of those things that fell in my lap. I'm just finished my NHRA license. I'm getting into drag racing this year in the Pro Mod class. I still got to finish my Pro Mod certification before I'm be safe and get some more seat time in that car. It's a super fast car. I've been training in 9 and 10 second cars, trying to figure out the procedure and staging and everything that I need to do to make sure that I'm safe and that I'm not putting somebody else who's lining up with me in any kind of danger either. And then a 9 or 10 second car, and then moving to a 5 second car in the Pro Mod division. It's like strapping your butt to a rocket. I mean,
no doubt.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's super intense, super competitive. I may have just opened a door for future retired pro athletes or fighters to do something else and stay in the game in some ways. But I'm excited about that opportunity that's coming. Got a lot more seat time to get here. Looks like my first race will probably be in Indy in August, which is a national event, and I'll be driving that car.
Yeah, I think
my first race.
The NHR Nationals were up in Bristol last week.
They were in Bristol last week.
Yeah, that Bristol. Have you been?
I have not.
That's
I'm going to be in Charlotte this year. I'm supposed to race in St. Louis, Indy, Charlotte, and Vegas. My first race was supposed to be this month in Richmond, Virginia, but I don't feel comfortable yet. Yeah. I got a lot of stuff to learn and a lot more seat time to get before I feel comfortable driving a car that fast.
Oh yeah,
you have no idea the power that is literally sitting in your lap. When you launch that car and you let go of that trans brake button, you've got the gas pedal to the floor. That car is just going to take off. the front wheels of that Pro Mod car don't come down for the first 200 feet of that run.
Can you see? Like, do
you can see, but it's not like, I mean, you're going in a straight line, thank God. But you know, there's a giant blower sticking out of the hood of that of that car. You can barely see around that to see the tree to know when to launch the car. And it's counterintuitive to everything you've ever been taught about driving a car. Using your left foot on the brake, your right foot on the gas pedal. You don't have a transmission or clutch. You're using a trans brake or a line hold, you know, to do your burnouts and all of that. It's this whole process. And, you know, knowing where the chutes are, how to shut that magneto off and that fuel pump off if something goes wrong or you crash that thing, all in a split second. You got to know all that stuff. Oh, you have brakes, but
oh, really?
Yeah, you still have brakes, but those chutes. I mean, when I launched that car, it's about 6 Gs coming off that line, 12,000 horsepower. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then when you hit the finish line and pop those chutes, that's a 2G negative.
Right.
So there's an 8G swing there in that quarter of a mile. It's the average fan watching drag racing, and drag racing is so Americana. It's an amazing thing. And I've been a fan for a long time. And this opportunity just fell in my lap to be able to drive a car. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. Are you kidding me? So that's something new for me coming up this year. I think I'm going to get to do 4 races this year. And Skag has got behind me as a driver. I don't know if you're familiar with Skag. It's a power tool company. It's the second biggest power tool company in the United States. They make lawnmowers, you know, compete with Toro, and you know, they got a Jackal. Toro makes the Dingo. So Randy Glady, he's the owner of Skag. He's an amazing guy. Him and I hit it off, and that's how one of the things and how this whole thing kind of started. He believes in his people. He doesn't go into Lowe's or Home Depot. He wants to be in the mom and pop shops.
Locals,
And those proprietors of all those things, he brings them all to the drag races and walks them right out to the starting line. That's how he spends his marketing budget.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting guy, a give back guy. You know, here's a guy that wants to do the right thing with his employees, the right things with his proprietors that sell his products. You know, Toro made the only one of those Jackals. It's kind of like a stand-on tractor with a blade or a forklift or an auger or whatever you need, but it's a smaller version of a tractor. And Toro's the only one that kind of makes one. So he's like, well, theirs is the Dingo. What eats dingoes?
Yeah.
Well, a Jackal does. So he called his the Jackal. That, you know,
that's marketing genius.
Really interesting.
I've got a buddy there in Dover that he mows yards, and he has a lot of the federal contracts, like, you know, up around the dams and stuff like that. And he has 20 Skag mowers. Mm-hmm. That's all they run is Skags, and those things are tanks, man. You can, it's crazy how fast they can mow with those. But yeah, I'm all into the Skag.
They got the Tree Frog, which is a remote mower. So some of those hillsides, you don't want to be on a tractor on a hillside like that trying to run a mower. You're going to wind up at the bottom underneath that thing.
Are
so
they
got
autonomous?
An RC one, a remote one that's called the Tree Frog that literally will, on a 6 or 7 degree slope, will just stick right to it. And
he has one of those, and I passed him running it up there at Fort Donaldson Cemetery, and he's standing by the road with a remote control, and this massive mower is just zipping up and down the hill, just mowing it, you know. But it's definitely not a hill I would have been on the mower. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Technology's insane now.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. Well,
interesting time to be a human.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never more connected than we've ever been right now. And these things we carry in our pockets, you know, we're seeing things in real time around the realm, everywhere in the world right now, literally in real time, which is unique. And at the same time, as connected as we are, we're as detached as we've ever been too, because we're all doing this.
Yep.
Yeah.
None of us are doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a huge issue.
No, I totally
put
agree.
Your damn phone down.
I totally agree.
Order your coffee. What do you think? The service industry's gone to hell because nobody can put their phone down long enough to order their coffee at the counter.
And it seems like even like the service industry or restaurants in general, they want you to order on your phone now.
Yeah. It's all QR codes.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, you don't even hand your card to the checkout lady anymore. You swipe it yourself right there at the table.
Yeah.
Just illuminating human contact every chance we get, it seems like.
You don't even have to go in Walmart anymore. You can put your order in online and pull up front,
bring
and
it
they'll
out.
have somebody
They'll
bring it out. No.
I feel like every time I go into a coffee shop and I'm there to order in person, I feel like the online orders are getting produced way faster than my order. They're like, you're like in the back of the line. You know, you're coming in person. You're like in the back of the line back there.
Yeah.
Dude, I was in Best Buy last week in West Nashville, and I want to make sure that I point that out exactly where I was at. And been standing in line like 10 minutes.
We acted like you got warrants out on you or something.
I was there 10
It's my alibi.
That's right. No, I want them to know that I was one of the people there. I want them to know. Literally standing, they had 2 cash registers open. We're standing in line. And, of course, the people at the counter are doing the best they can. And it gets to where there's one guy in front of me, and the girl goes, I am so sorry, but they're telling me in my ear that I need to wait on the people that have a pickup order first. And I'm like, but I'm standing in your store holding a product that I want to cash out. And you want to take care of the person who didn't even come here, maybe have an impulse buy and get them taken care of. Man, it rubbed me the wrong way. So I won't be going back to that. Just one of those.
Don't crash your drone.
Seems to be the way of the world.
I didn't get a drone there. It's actually where I looked at those DJI things, but I just got my new phone and I went in to get some additional.
You need to be
Apple cables.
finding a young kid that wants an extra $40 and pay him to climb that tree and get that drone out of there.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a chimpanzee to get that one out. That thing is way up there. Jeez.
Maybe Caesar's available.
Yeah.
From the Planet of the Apes.
Yep. That thing is, those pine trees at the top of them, there's so many branches.
Oh, yeah.
And I think an eagle hit it because it has alarms on it. And I had set my controller down, and all of a sudden I heard the alarm go off. And I'm sure you know this, they don't fly like vertical, and it was falling vertical when on the camera. I could see it, and I could see it when it hit in the top of the tree, and then I could just see it nestled in all these pine branches and whatnot. But I lost a drone last week in Humphreys County. Found one laying in the yard. My bad. It's pretty bad.
Need a big windstorm to come through there and knock it down.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be worth anything. 80 feet.
Hey, those things are
Another
pretty
one
tough.
of those technological advancements that we're using all the time now. We're using them in films.
Yeah.
I think Expendables 3 was one of the first times I'd seen a drone with a gimbal on it, and a camera under it, using it to film unique perspectives and scenes in the movie. You're using it to scout out properties and stuff like that. They're using them to, the homeowners associations are using them to patrol properties and make sure you're complying with all the CCNRs for whatever property you're in. There's all kinds of stuff.
The police are using them to find suspect. And, I'm not trying to sell DJIs, but like just because I've been recently in the market for a new drone, looking at the infrared technology that they have, and for $5,000, dude, you could have an infrared, drone, and which we see a lot of people around here do deer recovery with them.
Oh yeah, that's big.
Yeah, if they can get to it, in a couple hours and it's still got heat to it, they can with thermal imaging, they can find it.
Yeah,
and those big drones, they can that drone can pick it up and fly it out of there.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of them, drones flying with a deer hanging.
What about that dang zebra in Murfreesboro a couple days ago?
What? A zebra?
So got loose.
Oh my
God!
God!
Zebra.
A guy bought 3 zebras in Murfreesboro. It was like 2 females and a male. They hadn't been in his property 24 hours, and the male jumped out. And it was pretty close to Interstate 24. And so the next day, people were posting a video going down I-24 of this zebra running full speed down I-24. It took them 8 days to catch it, and they had to bring in the company from Texas.
They had to
the
dart
guy
it?
bought it from. They
didn't have to dart it. No.
They flew a helicopter down there. I think they used some kind of system. They might have darted on site. I don't know, but they had put it in a harness, and then they flew it back to a trailer.
There's these videos on social media and everything of this zebra going through Murfreesboro hanging from a
I
helicopter.
did not see that one. Wow, that's wild.
So
I can't imagine trying to catch a zebra. They look
taking-
like they'd be mean. The horses anyway.
Apparently their skull is like strong enough to crush your bones in your body if it hit you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be bit or kicked by one of those.
They're taking country to new levels over there in Murfreesboro. Be writing flying zebra songs in Nashville before it's over with. Yeah. It was pretty amazing, and it really captivated a lot of people online here locally, obviously. There was a bear that was loose over there about a week before. Mm-hmm. And, bears, we're kind of seeing them come back towards Middle Tennessee from the mountains, and they used to populate the whole state. Matter of fact, I've got a picture on my phone of, I believe it was my great-grandmother in West Tennessee behind her house feeding a bear, a black bear. But they've just all been hunted out, and now they're starting to expand back this way, and there's a lot more development here. But that bear got hit by a car. And that stuff's going to happen when you have high population density in areas and whatnot.
Yeah, the mountains over there in East Tennessee, the Seviervilles and the Gatlinburgs and stuff, all of that development's going on over there is pushing them out. And, yeah, like you said, in the last couple of years, we've seen some here in Middle Tennessee.
I saw a video this morning somebody took yesterday down in Corinth or Tupelo, and the bear literally crossed the interstate right by the exit sign for Tupelo. So you could see where it was at. It wasn't like speculation. It was a pretty good size black bear. But, some of the biggest black bears in the nation are in North Carolina.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I mean, they get big ones, and they're really
Developed
not.
an elk herd here in Kentucky and in this region as well, too.
Yeah, it's
Didn't
growing.
used to be here for a while.
Yeah, and it's a couple counties in northeast Tennessee and then Kentucky and even Pennsylvania. They've restocked them. And then not far from where we live in Dover, land between the lakes has an elk herd in it, but it's in an enclosure. They have elk and bison prairie, which is awesome. You can pay $5 and drive around there in the evening and have all these bull elk come out and buffalo, and they've got
That's
another.
cool. We got that place right by my ranch in Arizona called Bearizona. And Sean, the guy that started that, founded that. The original place was his family place in South Dakota. And then he moved to Arizona, and so he started Bearizona there. And I've taken a bunch of friends and kids. It's not a petting zoo, but you drive through it, and they've got wolf and buffalo and elk and all species of deer in there. And it's actually a really cool place.
That sounds cool.
They got a couple jaguars in there, and they got a couple grizzly bears. They got cubs. The mom was hit by a car in Montana, had 3 cubs, and he ended up getting the cubs for Bearizona. So I've watched those little cubs grow from little tiny cubs. They didn't even have their own enclosure built yet. Now they've got this huge enclosure, but they are full-size grizzlies. There's 2 females and a male. Unbelievable to see how fast they grow. And the claws on those things, oh man.
Now, tell me a little bit about your place in Arizona, and just kind of set this up. You had a place in Colorado that you'd
that you were involved with, and Mossy Oak was involved with helping me, first of all, find that place. I found the property, and then I put a Sand Creek post and beam log home on it, a rough cut post and beam home on it. I had 80 acres up there in the mountains outside of Westcliff, and I wanted to sell it because it was just so hard to get to. I thought when I retired from fighting in 2011, things would slow down.
It just
The
got busier.
opposite. I am as busy as I've ever been in my life since I retired from fighting, which is a good thing. And I never floundered. I never worried about who I was or what my purpose was now. I already had acting and the gym and the clothing line and all the other stuff I'd built, my foundation and all those things that I could immerse myself in, and that was my new purpose. And certainly still chasing acting jobs and having fun doing that. But I like to be out in the woods, and that place was amazing in Colorado. And I built this amazing house there, but I just couldn't get there. So it was empty. 96% of the time it was empty. One of my best friends was taking care of the place for me, and I hadn't hired him as a caretaker, but that's basically, so it was creating a rub for us as buddies. He's taking care of my joint all the time. And so I ended up selling it in 2020. 5 days before COVID lockdowns happened, that sale went through.
Yeah.
And I started looking. I drew a 5-hour circle around Vegas, basically. Duck Creek Village, up in Utah, looking for properties someplace that was close enough that I could get to, even on a long weekend, and use. And the guy that helped me sell the Colorado house, who was a Mossy Oak guy, he said, man, you need to check in with this gal in Flagstaff. She's been in the business 20 years. She's got some great properties. I'll bet she'll have something you'll like. So I reached out to this gal. And sure enough, first place I looked at with her, I looked at 6 that day. Yeah. And the first one we stopped at is the one that I ended up buying and that we're in now. It's right by Unit 10, which is one of the great elk units in Arizona, which is counterintuitive in and of itself that Arizona has some of the biggest elk in our country.
Dude, the White Mountain Apache Reservation is just insane.
Man,
like if you look at
unbelievable.
the world records, if they list the top 10, I guarantee you 8 of them are out White Mountain. It's just insane. And they're seeing bigger ones in Utah and Idaho.
Big
too.
muleys, big elk, some good fishing. And the Flagstaff area is the biggest ponderosa pine forest in the United States.
That's
You
crazy.
don't think you're in Arizona when
Everybody
you're
thinks
there.
it's a desert. Yeah.
That rarely gets above 85 there. Everybody thinks of Phoenix and, 120 and, desert, sagebrush and cactus, saguaras. But you're up in Flag area and I'm an hour and a half from the south rim of the Grand Canyon. It is spectacular, amazingly peaceful and beautiful area. Lots of great hunting and fishing, ATVs. I've got horses, all that stuff. 25 acres, small, nice little log home, much more manageable than the Colorado place was, and a lot easier to get to. 3.5 hours from Vegas, door to door. So
Yeah. Here in Tennessee, we call those gentleman farms.
Yeah.
Small, you got enough room, nice house to do whatever you want, and we call them gentleman farms here in
well, I
Tennessee.
can see that.
You get elk in your yard, muleys out there too.
I've had antelope, elk, javelina, deer, obviously. They got both whitetails and muleys, but muleys that's the one I need to get. That's the one I haven't ever shot is a muley. I've got two great, like this one right here, whitetails, but I haven't shot a big muley.
I got a guy for you.
Yeah.
One of our agents, Ty Sutley, his brother's a guide up in South Dakota, and they
Oh, wow. Yeah.
they hammer the muleys up there. Yeah.
I shot a small one up there, but
Yeah.
not a that was probably the best week of hunting I've ever had in my life. It was in just outside of where the Sturgis, just outside of Sturgis with Rick and
motorcycles,
Julie. Shot an antelope and a white-tailed deer. And then that was my first whitetail with them ever with my bow. And then a week later, I was with Jesse and Ginger about 40 miles away in another spot and shot another antelope and another
Dude, that little area
white-tailed
up
deer.
there is-
They had giant mule deers there. I just didn't shoot a mule deer. I shot a whitetail.
That little area is amazing. It's like an isthmus. If you look at it on a map, it's not part of the Rockies. It feels like it is, but it's not. It's probably another 200,
Black Hills. Yeah.
300 miles over
It's so
there.
crazy because you think you can see from for miles and miles and miles, and like there's no animals out there. But you go walk that stretch, and they just start popping up. They're
Dude,
there. They just
You'll
so
be
good
driving
at
through town,
hiding.
and there'll be sheep standing like right up
Yeah.
in people's yards,
Yep.
and it's crazy. And another thing too is like it's not that far from the Badlands. I don't know if you've ever been to the Badlands. That is an amazing place
It
to
is
go.
really cool.
There's
is beautiful.
bison walking around everywhere, and there's petrified wood just laying in different places. It's amazing. It's an amazing place to go. Yeah, the muleys have always been amazing to me. There's really pockets of really big ones in different areas. I know Colorado's got a couple units that are just outstanding for muleys. I'll tell a funny story real quick. Butch McElwain, Harold's younger brother, back in the day, he'd been filming for Night in Hell, and he had booked a muley hunt in Kansas. And he asked me to go with him and be his cameraman. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. I'd not done much cameraman work at the time. And we got about halfway out there, and Butch realizes that the hunt falls on his anniversary.
Oh,
And so he is like mad at himself. But I'm the only person in
He
the
can
van.
take it out on you.
So he's just like grumpy the whole time. And we get there, and he finally calms down. And our outfitter is just terrible. Our van, the vehicle we went out in was his construction van. And like I sat on a box that was like in the back of the van that was covered in shag carpet. Like it had like a rail down the side, and our accommodations was his house with his kids. And there's like 10 of us out there hunting. And we go out scouting, and most of the roads out there are done in a grid. I think they square them a mile and a mile. And we're kind of out there scouting, and he had areas he could hunt that touched areas he couldn't hunt. And we come down this road, and I look out the window, and there's a 200-inch muley going into the tree line. And I said, Butch, look to the right. And Butch just caught a glimpse of him, and he was going into the woods, but it was only 100 yards to the road that crossed over to where the guy had permission. So here's, this changes how Butch feels about being gone on his anniversary. Here's a massive opportunity and whatnot. I had not ever been around mule deer. I knew that was a massive one, but I'd not been around a lot. And all the pictures I'd seen, they looked so much bigger than whitetail. It was kind of hard to gauge what he was really going for. Hunted 3 days. He didn't really get a look, and it was amazing because in the evening, it was like somebody turned on a spigot, and deer would come out of everywhere. We were hunting this field, and all of a sudden there would just be deer just in
Popping
front
up,
of you,
yeah.
and it'd be whitetail, and it would be muleys. It'd be mixed. And the last day of the hunt, we hadn't killed anything, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to want to fool with filming footage. If we get something, just go with a guide, and y'all go see if you can get some B-roll so we can add some other videos and whatnot. And so we dropped Butch off, and he hadn't been out of the truck 5 minutes, and they call us on the radio and say, hey, we got a good-sized muley over here in this field bedded down if you want to bring Chris over here to get some footage of it. So we pull over in this field, and, of course, it's big plains. It's, it's not like you can go to an oak tree and he's standing 100 yards. You've got to find him. So we pull up his property, and there's a long fence. And I look down the fence, and I see this giant rack sitting down there. He's rotating and whatnot. And I was like, I think that's the deer they were telling us about. So I hop out with the camera, and I start filming it. And lo and behold, it's like a 190-inch mule deer. I didn't know it because I didn't know how to gauge him on the hoof. I didn't know how big it was. And that deer walked within 30 yards of me for an hour, and I filmed him. It had the moon behind him and everything. It was just ridiculous. Well, we get back to the lodge, and I break out my footage, and Butch is, like, incensed. He's like, why didn't y'all call me and tell me about this deer being over there? It's like, you told me not to worry about it. But it was kind of funny, but it's just amazing how you can get in areas over there, and you have, within a 2-mile radius, 200-inch deer, 180-inch mule deer. Now I know a whole lot more about it. I was really young then. But
It's interesting you're seeing a mule deer in Kansas. I think of Kansas, and I think of white-tailed deer, big
Right.
white-tailed deer. I mean, Kansas and Iowa, they got some monster white-tailed deer. And I didn't know it even had mule deer in Kansas. But
yeah, and that
makes sense they'd be big, too.
that western part up there, kind of where it borders Colorado, is kind of where
okay,
we were at.
that makes sense.
Dude, some of the best footage I ever got filming was on that trip. We had a whitetail that was running parallel with us down the road through these fields and hopping fences and going across roads. And I just sat there in the back of the van filming out the window, just side by side. I bet I probably had 3 or 4 minutes of film of that giant whitetail jumping. But Butch didn't have a whitetail tag, and so we couldn't really do anything but get B-roll. But it's a pretty amazing place to hunt out there.
Yeah. Do you know what the fastest land animal is in the United States?
Grizzly bear?
No.
Nope.
No.
Speed goat.
Pronghorn antelope.
They
Yeah.
call them speed goats.
Yeah, we were up in North Dakota duck hunting, and we were scouting for ducks. And I've got a German short-haired pointer, and if you know about a German short-haired pointer, they can run. And out scouting for ducks, we come up on this knoll, and there's some ducks on this backside. You can't see them from the road, but you can see a couple flocks coming in. And so I get out of the truck and take my dog with me, just to try to get closer, really hone in on where they're at. And they're in this like little bitty pothole down there with a lot of cattails around it. And my dog gets down there close to it, and this pronghorn just jumps out of the cattails and takes off. And my dog was on that thing's butt, dude.
Really?
A pronghorn, the fastest land animal in the world, or in the United
35
States.
miles an hour.
Yeah. And man, my dog was on it, and I was pretty impressed with the way he can run like that, dude.
I've seen drone video of them migrating. Most people don't know that antelope actually migrate. And it's amazing, like they were on a run. And I could not believe how much ground that they were covering. I know a grizzly can
The
run up.
interesting thing about a pronghorn is they can't jump the fence. They go
Yeah.
under the fences.
Yeah.
They literally slide under the fences, but they don't have the ability to jump the fences.
Yeah.
And they don't run like a horse or a dog would. They have that hop to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like springs in their legs. Yeah.
Mule-
Yeah.
Mule deer are the same way.
That hunt with Jesse and Ginger, we hunted with horses in South Dakota because it's so wide open.
Yeah.
And they can, their safety mechanism is their eyes. They can see movement from a long, long ways out. So we walk by the horses. They can't count legs.
Right.
You literally keep the horse between you and the herd of antelope and just let the horses eat and just keep moving and get close enough to where you can drop down below the horse and shoot your bow.
Yeah.
That's how I shot that antelope there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I've seen people
It's an
using-
old Indian trick, I guess. The Indians
Yeah.
used to do it that way.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'd never done that or seen that, and that's what we did on that hunt. It was really, really interesting.
Did you ever hunt blacktail? Sorry.
No, you good.
Yeah, I grew up in
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest, and we had blacktail up there. My first deer was a little spike blacktail deer.
I tried so hard when I was up there to hunt blacktail, and those little dudes are elusive. And I would see a couple when I was out, but their racks are smaller than they are here, and like I didn't want to shoot anything too little, but I never saw anything that I felt like as a shooter, even in that rack range. But man, they're so different. I mean, they look a lot like a whitetail, but the body size is like almost like a Labrador.
Yeah, they are small.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny thing about my first duty station was Germany, and I worked in it. I was an air traffic controller in the Army. So we're in the tower, we had a whole airfield with grass and all that, and the deer would come out, and the deer over there were little deer, little tiny deer. The jackrabbits were bigger than the damn deer.
That's good.
These huge jackrabbits running all over the place. But
It's like whitetail deer down here in the South compared to one up in the Midwest.
just
those
throw it
small
over your
bodies.
shoulder and carry it back.
Yeah. What's crazy about this county is like, and we'll wrap it up here in a minute because I can sit here and talk about this stuff all day long. But like, there's 200-inch deer in Williamson County, and it's because of all these homes and whatnot. Nobody hunts them. I guess most people don't know they actually could archery hunt them. It's legal to do that. There was a 200-inch deer poached up by the BMW dealership.
Oh yeah.
By some of those mechanics. And then they took it to like a county over the next day to a taxidermist.
Oh, wow.
And so they ended up catching them. But I used to see that deer laying in the corner of the parking lot up there by Cool Springs Galleria.
Yeah.
It would just be laying there.
And so many people had seen that
Yeah.
deer in person, and then they posted a picture of it, and people were like, "That's a BMW deer,"
Yeah.
and they got in trouble. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was another one that I would see up when we had the office downtown. And if I ever left out and went over towards the mall, there's a field over there by Mac Hatcher. And he would be out there every other evening, probably 180-inch whitetail, usually with one or two does, but just be out there grazing. And there's 100 cars a minute passing him, and he was just oblivious to it. Like he felt so safe and comfortable and whatnot. But the genetics in some areas are just crazy.
Yeah. Dixon County is another good one. There's some good deer in Dixon County.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I killed a biggest turkey I've ever killed in my life in Dixon County. It was 37 pounds.
Wow.
And Yellow Creek turkeys, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was more towards Charlotte. It wasn't. I mean, there's some big turkeys on Yellow Creek, but this thing, it came in with two other birds, and it looked like they were his children. He was so. They came in broadside, and this was like a week. I have congestive heart failure, and this is like a week before I got diagnosed. And after I shot it, I had to tote it back to the truck, and I felt like I was carrying like a kid, to the truck. And I got to the truck, and I couldn't breathe. I was like, that is a heavy bird. I had no idea it was as big as it was. I mean, body-wise, I could see it, but it probably would have been a state record if I had done that, at least weight-wise and whatnot. It would have scored out like that. It had normal beard length and spur length and whatnot, but it looked like a butterball out there. It was insane.
Middle Tennessee, man, we're known for our turkeys.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Randy, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come hang out and talk.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being such a good friend, man. You're an awesome guy.
Yeah, growing up watching UFC fights in my buddy's barn, I never thought I'd sit across the table on a podcast with you. But hey, man, this business and Mossy Oak and the people of Mossy Oak, you never know who you're going to meet. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, brother.
You bet. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Hey, thank you for listening to Tennessee Dirt, presented by Mossy Oak Properties, Tennessee Land and Farm. And be sure to visit us at mossyoakproperties.com to connect with our team and our collection of listings located throughout the state of Tennessee.